All right, everyone. So thank you so much for joining us today. We had just a couple of hiccups on our end with our interface and just the technical things that we have to do, and so we're just a couple of minutes late, but we are getting started. And so I'm Barry Sarvet, and I am the statewide medical director for MCPAP. And it is my pleasure, as always, to welcome you to our Clinical Conversations program. As you know, we always have these sessions on the fourth Tuesday of every month. I'll introduce our session for today in a moment, but just to let you know, next month, our session is on February 25th. And it is going to be a really nice conversation about working with adolescent substance use disorder issues, with patients and families in the primary care setting. Today's topic is working with challenging parents in pediatric practices. And you see, hopefully, the screen, with the information about getting your CME credits. The code is VEBHUB. As always, we record the session, so feel free to tell your friends if you like and you think it would be of interest to them. They can access the recording at the MCPAP website, which is www.mcpap.com. And they can also and you can have the PowerPoint slides, which will be available on the MCPAP website as well under the Toolkits and Resources page. We like to have conversations, and that's why we call this Clinical Conversations. And so please feel free to liberally ask questions whenever you want. And the preferred method is to enter it into the chat. I'll be monitoring it. And we'll sort of cut in on the presentation if it's relevant, to what the presenter is talking about at the moment. Otherwise, we'll save it for the right time, in the process. Okay, so here we are with our speaker, Dr. John Sargent. Dr. John Sargent is an old friend of mine, a very long-standing friend of mine. Not old, but we're both old, and we've been friends for a long time. And he is a wonderful friend of MCPAP, having been part of our really initial journey when we started in 2004. And so he's one of the longest running child and adolescent psychiatry leaders, who's been supporting and really kind of contributing to MCPAP from the very beginning. He is the director of child and adolescent psychiatry at Tufts Medical Center. He's a professor of psychiatry and pediatrics at Tufts University School of Medicine. In addition to leading the child psychiatry division, Dr. Sargent actually really built or rebuilt, and led the development of all the training programs in child psychiatry at Tufts, as well as the triple board residency program there. Prior to being at Tufts, he was the professor of psychiatry and pediatrics at Baylor, and used to be at the Manager Clinic, a very renowned mental health system for adults and children. And he was the clinical director of a program called System of Hope, which is a community-based system of care for kids with severe and persistent mental illness in Houston. He's currently a member of the Massachusetts Children's Behavioral Health Advisory Council, which is responsible for monitoring and improving children's behavioral health throughout the state. And he is has broad interests in child psychiatry and working with systems and working with kids and families who are underserved and who are struggling with social determinants of health. He also happens to be actually a primary interest of his is working with families. And he teaches and leads in psychotherapy for families. He's personally a very, very accomplished family therapist. And he also is himself a person who has board certification and training in not only regular child psychiatry and general psychiatry, but also in pediatrics. He's the past president of the American Family Therapy Academy and has been secretary treasurer of the American Association of Directors of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. He's also done a lot of international work for children and families. So I also want to say that I heard, through the grapevine that Dr. Sargent is retiring, and I'm not sure what the dates of that is, and he can tell us, but I just want to thank him just publicly for all of the partnership and contributions that he's made to the work that we do in Massachusetts and actually nationally, and for his support of our program. So with that, I think I'll hand it off to Dr. Sargent, and we can start.
Sure. Thanks, Barry. So I actually, oh gosh, I retired at the first of the year, so I've been enjoying what it means to be retired, I guess. But anyway, this is a real pleasure of mine to talk with you all about working with families. So I'm assuming that you will move the slides ahead. Is that right?
Parvina will be doing that. To just let us know when you want to switch the slides.
Barry.
So I'll just tell you when. I'll say next slide.
Yes.
Yep. John, just to explain to folks that we were having trouble with your sound, so you're talking through the phone. So please bear with us. The sound isn't quite as clear as it might otherwise be.
Yeah, and actually, Dr. Sargent, if you don't mind turning off the sound on your computer and just talking to the phone so we won't get that echo.
Well, we'll see. I hope that works. Huh? I don't know.
It's better already, John. So go right ahead.
It says I'm installing this, so I'm going to wait a second until the installation finishes, because I don't like the echo. Okay, here, and then I can hang up the phone.
Yeah. It's actually tolerable right now, so I think if you wanted to proceed, it would be okay.
All right. So, Parvina, if you would move to the next slide. I have no disclosures. And the next slide, thank you. So, I believe that pediatricians are among the most trusted resources for parents. That parents will bring issues of concern to their families. To their pediatrician. Maybe I could hang up the phone and see if that works. Huh?
Let's see if he comes on.
Sorry, everybody.
Thank you guys for bearing with us.
Yeah, we've been lucky that we usually don't have these problems, but I guess our luck is temporarily run out for today. But hopefully, we'll be back on track in a moment.
It would be the day we have our record attendance. We have 88 people on the call.
Right. So I'm gonna
He's back on.
yeah, there comes the echo again. Oh dear. All right.
Yeah, if there's,
So
if there's any way to
people,
the microphone on your computer, and if you're talking on the phone so it doesn't get picked up by the computer mic, I think that would do the trick.
But I'm gonna walk him through it really quick.
John, I'd just go ahead.
all right.
All right, we're back on. I think what's happening here is it's my computer. I have to unmute myself so the echo comes on. But I think we're just gonna continue with what we can. John, if
Okay.
that's okay with you.
Okay.
You got this,
Let's
John.
go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
Yeah, that's actually working fine, so I think we can proceed like this.
Perfect.
Okay. So, as any pediatrician knows, that parents bring concerns about their child's behavior and their child's emotional state, but they also are willing to talk about and often will talk about other stresses that they experience. And it's those other stresses that I'm going to focus on today. And what I really believe is that the more pediatricians are prepared for this, the better they do. Next slide, please. Yeah. So a model for parenting that I've developed over the years includes 4 elements.
Ravina, you're on mute. You have to unmute yourself. Thanks.
What's going?
You're good.
It's okay?
Yep.
All right. The third, so structure is really about creating a safe space for the child to be able to explore and learn through exploration. People think that structure is about discipline and rules and expectations. It's really about providing the child with an opportunity to explore in a safe way. The third primary aspect of parenting is what people call attachment, which is really the ability of the parent to help the child in their relationship calm when stressed, which really means that the parent has to calm themselves in order to help the child calm themselves at a moment of stress. And then the fourth element is called affiliation, which really means that the parent cares about and loves that child as he or she is. Not as the parent wished they would be, but as they actually are. So a combination of providing for the child, ensuring safety, supporting the child emotionally when stressed, and loving the child for themselves are really, in my view, the key elements of parenting. Next slide. The key issues in parenting are that children learn what they observe and experience. The way parents behave is much more important in reflecting how the child acts than what the parents say. So it really is about behaving in a way that you want your child to behave. Very hard to do because it requires that you be aware of what you're doing when you're doing it. The style and nature of parenting needs to change as the child develops. And one of the key problems with parenting is that it's always a step behind, right? The child develops a new skill and the parent has to adapt to it. The parent can't easily have the style of parenting that a child will need in the future, but they learn it through the child's development and the child's response to their parent. The third key aspect is that parenting is always a team sport. The more parenting figures, whoa, where did my slides go here? Oh dear. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, okay. The more the parenting figures agree and work together, the better the experience and the outcome of parenting is. And it could be a single parent and grandparent. It could be a single parent and paramour or step parent, or it could be two coupled parents together. But parenting is a team sport. Oh, next slide, please. The child is always a separate being with their own thoughts, needs, and goals, which have to be taken into account as the parent works with the child. This again requires that parents have the ability to see the child as they are, not as they want them to be, but as they are. The most appropriate model for parenting is a relationship. Not that the child is an object to be directed, but that parenting is negotiated between parent and child in their relationship. The warmer and more successful the relationship is, the better parenting experience is for the parent. And then the final thing I wanted to say about parenting is that it's reinforced by the child's response. So the more the child is warm and successful, the more the parenting is reinforced, right? And the more gentle and smooth the parent-child relationship is. We have the next slide, please. So there are three styles of parenting: authoritative, authoritarian, and laissez-faire. The kind that works the best is authoritative. That there are rules, expectations, but warm support in helping the child achieve the expectations of the parenting. Authoritarian is basically directive, and laissez-faire is hands-off. Neither of those work particularly well, and oftentimes in problematic situations, the parents will switch from authoritarian to laissez-faire and back and forth. When they find that being directive doesn't work, they quit for a bit, then they get disturbed and troubled, and then they come back with directive. And what you want to do is help the parent be expectant and warm. So it's not anything goes parenting, And it's not my way or the highway parenting. It's a parenting that is negotiated between the parent and the child in a way that meets parent expectations and includes nurturance, structure, attachment, and affiliation. Okay? All right. So I've developed a developmental model of parenting that fits with a cognitive development model of child development. Okay? So during infancy, up till toddlerhood, parenting is primarily nurturing, but the parent is actively trying to learn the child's signals so that they're responding to the child's needs as the child wants. And we all know how this takes place. Preschool children require rules and expectations, but also the possibility that the parent will exercise physical control if it's needed for safety for the child or for the family. For school-age kids, the key is having clear rules and expectations, and children who are in concrete thinking, black and white thinking, do very well with rules and expectations, given that they're consistent. Adolescents need to develop their own ability to think for themselves and act for themselves. And they do that with a model of supervision that any physician is used to from the experience of medical student or resident, right? So it's the combination of being available, willing to take responsibility, but also giving the child or the teenager the opportunity to explore for themselves. And we can think about people's experience as fluctuating between exploration and security seeking. So you explore by making your own decisions, and you receive security by checking it out with supervision. As the child moves through adolescence into emerging adulthood, in late teen and early 20 years, if parenting moves from supervision and expectation of direction to mentoring, giving advice, but allowing the child to make their own decisions. Next slide. The other thing that's really important in thinking about parenting is that children have varying temperament or behavioral style. And temperament dictates the way in which parenting can be most successful. Next slide. There are 3 temperamental varieties that were identified by Cheston Thomas many years ago: easy, difficult, and slow to warm up. And anybody who has more than one child knows that their child's temperament is unique to them. So you may have an easy child and a difficult child in the same family. You may have a slow to warm up child in a family with an easy or a difficult child. The important thing here is to recognize the child's style. And next slide. Provide a fit between the parenting and the child's style. So there's no one style that necessarily leads to behavioral problems. It's more the fit between the child's style and the parenting expectation or the way in which the family is. So an easy child in a family that's chaotic may be neglected, and a difficult child in an easy family may be under regulated. Parenting modification can be made with an appreciation of the child's style. So one of the things that any pediatrician will be able to figure out is sort of what's this child's style, or ask the parents what they think that child's style is, and then help the parents adapt to that. There also is some thought that slow to warm up children who hang back but will join, are more likely to have anxiety-related difficulties as they grow up. But easy and difficult children don't necessarily have psychopathology, except insofar as their behavioral style doesn't fit with the family style. Next slide. So then I think about problematic parenting in several ways, right? The first three listed here, abuse, domestic violence, and neglect, are separated off because they become vehicles for reporting to the state with respect to the possibility of child abuse or neglect. So those are parenting styles or parenting behaviors that warrant a report by mandated reporters, and the pediatrician has got to talk to the family about making that report and emphasize their role in promoting the child's safety. Then you can have parental preoccupation, enmeshment, or disengagement as parenting styles that may not rise to the level of abuse or neglect and may not include domestic violence, but may be problematic. In those cases, it's important that the pediatrician identify the problem and work with the parent to develop a remedy. Next slide. So I'm going to talk about each of those problem parenting situations where you might not make a report to the state for child abuse, or if in fact you did make a report, it's likely to be screened out. Investment is the kind of closeness where the child's individuality, voice, and independence are not respected, and the parent exercises a level of control and connection with the child that can feel uncomfortable and inhibit the child's development. It usually reflects parental anxiety. It may reflect a parental over-responsibility, a sense that I have to be in control of my child in order to be an effective parent. And it may be also a response to an unrealizable goal. We often see this in children who have chronic illness, intellectual disability, handicapping conditions, where the parent wants the child to be able to do things that they just cannot do, or to have an illness go away or be managed in a perfect way that cannot be achieved. The other thing to pay attention to here is the role of polarization. Parents will often divide themselves into a soft parent and a hard parent. So the soft parent is providing nurturance, and the hard parent is providing rules and expectations. And what happens is they become more and more and more polarized, more disconnected from each other, and more independent in their attempt to parent the child. And often the parent who is excessively protective is enmeshed with the child, and the parent who is excessively discipline-oriented or rule-oriented can be disengaged and disconnected. Next slide. So if you identify enmeshment, it's important to identify first and foremost the parent's confidence and desire to be effective. What has often helped me in my career has been a maxim that says that, in fact, nobody has a child in order to ruin their life. They have a child in order to raise them effectively, and they may be scared, or their desire to have a healthy child may be frustrated, and that may cause enmeshment. But it's the parent's desire to be confident and caring that leads to the enmeshment and needs to be validated and supported. And then one can support the child's independence and voice, elaborate the parent's worries, what the parent is in fact scared of, see if the parent can accept what can't be done, like we cannot make diabetes go away. We cannot make a kid with Down syndrome normally intelligent, right? And then see if the parent can begin the process of relaxing and guiding the child from more distance. And then decide whether additional help or support is needed and could be helpful. The really important thing here is to remember that as a physician, when we refer a family to someone else, they get alarmed by the reality that their problem might be very significant. And they may become defensive and may want the pediatrician to be able to embrace the problem and work with the family to the point where the family recognizes that they need more help rather than just the doctor recommending more help. That might require an extra visit, or it might require a private conversation. But it's really important that this be something that the family agrees to in a positive way. Next slide.
Hey, John, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely, man.
Hey, one of the other circumstances that I've kind of encountered clinically when I see sort of enmeshment, like you're describing with families, is parental kind of attachment kind of needs, that aren't being met. Sometimes there's a history of attachment problems, where the parent has, experienced neglect and trauma. Sometimes there is loneliness, on the part of the parent in their marital relationship, or maybe, they don't have a partner of their own, and then they sort of rely and become dependent upon, this emotional sort of attachment to the child. And so I guess, the point I would make here is that, we're not going to necessarily be psychoanalyzing the parent, but I think the principle here, and it goes along with what you're saying about no parent, wants to screw up their kids, but I guess the principle is that parents' needs really need to be met, that a lot of times when, there's enmeshment, they're sort of trying to get their needs met, from the child, to the detriment, of the child's development. And we have to kind of make sure that parents are getting what they need, which might be support, helping them to sort of get, work on building resources and relationships, outside of the relationship with the child, and also not blaming them. And I think that we as mental health providers have a tendency to kind of identify psychopathology and then kind of label it. And, even if we don't mean to blame them, I think the message of blame comes across, and ends up, getting in the way. But I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. I just wanted to share some of those ideas.
I think that pediatrician senses that kind of loneliness and can validate the parent's experience of wanting involvement in care. Remember that any parent is simultaneously a parent and an individual. They have their own needs for closeness and love and care, and they have the desire to parent their child effectively. And you can sense that loneliness or that wish to have someone for me in a parent, and you can even validate that. But remember that is not pathological. That in fact all of us want closeness. All of us want connection. And the child is often very willing to provide that because they love their parents so much, and because they recognize their parents' sadness and loneliness, and recognize their effectiveness in assuaging that. So what we need to do is to help the parent recognize that they have their own needs, in addition to the joy and balance of parenting their child, and that they can meet those needs through support, perhaps through psychotherapy, perhaps through an involvement with family members, neighbors, others. But you can't blame a parent for wanting closeness when the child is providing it, but you can help the parent begin to realize the child's need for independence and their own experience of friends and peer relationships and learning and growing. And then at the same time encourage the child to be independent. So you may see improvement in the child's enthusiasm and confidence. You may notice that the parent's anxiety or worry or loneliness diminishes. You may see persistent problems in the child, and you may want to get a consultation with MCPAP. And the consultation can be identified as a need to explore enmeshment and problematic parenting as well as explore a problem in the child. Next slide. Parental disengagement tends to occur when the parent is preoccupied. The parent may act disconnected during the visit. The parent's mood may be concerning. And the child may, in fact, be overly connected with the doctor and may have trouble leaving the visit. So those are things that you can observe. And you may hear also about the child behaving in ways that are under-supervised or under-supported. Next slide. So some of the reasons why parents may be preoccupied include marital discord, conflictual divorce, parental substance misuse, parental mental illness, parental illness or death, and then more commonly, family stress, which may be grandparent illness or death, or maybe circumstances like job loss, homelessness, poverty, or moving. The kinds of things that preoccupy a parent. And it's important to have these possibilities in mind when you are meeting up with parents who seem disconnected from their child. And you can ask, are there other stresses going on? And in general, my experience has been that both as a pediatrician and as a child psychiatrist, that parents will own these when asked specifically. The way that I tend to ask is, are there any particular stresses occurring, any recent changes occurring, anything going on that are particularly concerning to you? And have in mind the possibility that parents may very well present one of these or actually several of these. But all of them tend to make parenting take second place to the parent's concern about the problem that most of the parents have. Next slide. So how do you identify parenting challenges? First, you got to be ready to hear family and parenting concerns. I would say that probably somewhere between a quarter and a third of pediatric visits include some aspect of parenting challenge. And the reason for that is that there's no guaranteed way of parenting effectively. It solves over time, it fluctuates, and it develops. As the child develops and the parents learn from their child what works best, there is, I think, an expectation that a parent has responsibility and therefore the need to be perfect. That never works. So you want to be willing to hear problems with parenting, listening for clues of distress, being comfortable elaborating the concern, determining whether the parent needs privacy in talking with a pediatrician, and whether there's a need for additional conversation. I call this the unexpected enlarged liver, right? Where you're doing a normal physical exam and you find something on the physical exam that you were not expecting. that you have to work up, that you have to spend perhaps more time in determining what's going on, and where you have to decide whether this is something that needs immediate attention by you, immediate attention by someone else, or a relatively quick follow-up. We're making these decisions all the time, and it turns out that behavioral concerns about the child and reflected parenting concerns and parenting challenges are among the most common problems that we encounter in primary care as well as secondary care. Next slide. You have to be aware of the resources for help. You have to clearly state the concern, establish agreement about working on the problem, developing an intervention plan, which may be a referral, maybe a MCPAP consultation, maybe a consultation with a behavioral health professional in your office. It may be a referral to additional support if the family's ready for that. Get a commitment to follow through and plan for a follow-up meeting. Same as you would do with any other pediatric concern. Next slide. The key, I think, is to avoid giving advice. Right? What should I do, doctor? Well, what do you think you should do? How do you think you should approach it? What do you think the problem is? And what do you think the best solution is? And then once you've heard the parent's response, you can modify that and include other thoughts that you might have. But I will tell you that just giving advice in response to an anxious question leads often to, I've already tried that. We've done that. It doesn't work. And you don't want to be in that position. So as much as you can turn that request for advice into a question of the parents about what they think they should do, and then modifying that is often the best solution. The second thing that's really important is that you've got to believe in the possibility of change, growth, and development of parents as well as of children. Parents can change how they approach things and will change if the change is effective. Right? But we've got to believe that the change can occur. And we've got to believe that the change will evolve out of an appreciation of the parents' desire to be the best parents they can be. And then our job is to develop a timeline of expectation of return to normative development. And if that timeline doesn't work, that may be a reason for a MCPAP consultation or referral for behavioral health treatment. Next slide. So I really believe that the child is the parent's responsibility. That our job is to help the parents raise the child effectively with a sense of joy and satisfaction. Perhaps not exactly what the parents might have wished for, but good enough for the parents to feel rewarded and happy. I believe that there's tremendous reward in helping families raise their children effectively, and that's our job. Challenging parents and children often have the greatest reward for us because we've made a difference in their lives. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Barry, if you have additional thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm really, it's been fun to put this together. I hope it's been meaningful to the audience, and go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. So this is, really, really thoughtful and fascinating material. And I think that the pediatricians and pediatric primary care providers in the audience have tons of experiences and have had challenges. So I hope that you could take a moment to enter into the chat or just unmute yourself and ask a question. But I can kick it off to just say that that idea about not giving advice, I just want to call out how radical, that is compared to the legacy and culture of being a doctor. Sort of in our culture, doctors are supposed to be knowledge keepers who are supposed to give people advice and tell people what to do and recommend and intervene, in people's lives. And I agree with you. I think that we get ourselves into a lot of trouble when we apply, that model kind of uniformly to, mental health work, and so I think for all the reasons that you stated, that it's so much better, to refrain, and to resist, the reflex to tell people what, you think they should do. But to really collaborate, and partner with families and to honor, their knowledge, because, we don't always know more than they do about, how to raise their kid. Sometimes we know we know things that they don't know for sure, but, they know stuff that we don't know for sure too. And so I love the approach of really not kind of just rushing to tell people what to do, but to ask people what they, think they ought to do, and then to really negotiate and try to have a conversation, just like we're having right now. And I think that's a really nice approach.
Harry, it reflects on the 3 styles of parenting. We can model that as we are being a physician. In terms, we don't want to be authoritarian. We don't want to be laissez-faire. We want to be John, what's your the collaborative?
The authoritative, and yeah.
I think that I've learned this by dealing with parents who have children who are neurodiverse, and the parents don't understand the reasons why the child is acting the way they're acting, but they know that the child is different. And so when they say, "What's wrong with my child, doctor?" I say back to them, "Well, tell me what you see. Tell me what you think." And then the parent will say, "I think my child is a little slow," or "I think my child is a little bit disconnected," or "I think my child is not responding to our directives in the way that we want." And the parent will then ultimately say what the problem is, and then we can validate that recognition and perhaps add a diagnosis if we feel like that's comfortable for us, or say to the parents, "Yes, I understand that you're worried about your child, and maybe we need more information in order to be concrete about it." And I found that parents who are saying, no, my child is not autistic, or my child is not this, or my child is not that. In fact, we'll come to that when asked to describe the child themselves.
Yeah, I like that way of thinking. And I guess, if there's any sort of, I mean, there's no one take-home message, but one of the take-home messages that I feel is important is really around trying to cultivate empathy, for parents. A lot of times, particularly for difficult parents, it's easy to have empathy for the easy parents. But for the difficult parents, they're often challenging, and we often find fault with them, and we sort of think that they're neglectful. And I think that the point is that if we want them to change, that we have to respect them first and have to demonstrate that respect for them, and have to understand that a lot of the problems, that you outlined, John, as far as different parenting problems, they're sort of stemming from pain and suffering, that parents are experiencing, and they need help, not, sort of tough love, or, sort of, I mean, obviously you have to, call DCF and report families if you feel like they're, threatening the safety, of their child. But other than that, like, there's this huge opportunity that we have to help them, but avoiding the blaming, and really respecting them, I think, is such an important first step. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of research that shows that if the parents are told that they have a problem, or that they are the problem, some parents don't easily respond to that. And I think that what we want to do is exactly what Barry said. Oh, there was a question sometimes. Barry, do you have the chat?
Yeah, I have the chat, and it's from Dr. Sonia Diaz, and she wrote that sometimes one feels beat up by parents who expect things for us to fix. And there's a question mark there, but it's really it's a statement, and it's true that clinicians are, sometimes we have to take care of ourselves, too, and so it becomes hard. Like, if we're feeling beat up, it becomes hard for us to maintain that empathy, but that's kind of where the self-care that we all have to do comes in, I think. But John, do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that it's always possible to say no. I can't make autism go away. I can't make intellectual disability go away. I can't make ADHD go away. That sometimes the problems of children are in fact sad and require a grief reaction. And if we own our own helplessness, then that models owning that helplessness for parents, right? I think that one of the things that's really important is that we not ever promise to fix something that we can't fix. But at the same time, some of the most rewarding parenting experiences are with children with chronic illness or handicapping conditions. As one can see in Special Olympics and all kinds of experiences that parents have with children who are diverse. The expectation that parenting automatically leads to a healthy, perfect child is just a myth. And in fact, we're all different. We all have strengths and weaknesses. And the key is to make the parenting fit with the child and promote the child's development such as it can be.
Well, thank you
And
so much.
yeah,
John, we are kind of at time a little bit over, and I just want to
okay.
once again thank you so much for presenting to us and for all of your contributions to MCPAP, and I just want to thank everyone for attending, and we'll see you next month.
Yeah, thank you all.
February 25th, and hope everyone stays warm as best they can.
Y'all take care. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.